Hello, welcome back to Rev Endurance Sports and another edition of What is in Our Stand Today. That's a hashtag you can follow, what is in our stand today. There's also another hashtag that I use on my Instagram, which the links will be down below. And it's called hashtag What Lurks Within. And that is a series of posts where I'm in the process of doing a repair for someone. I find something that the customer or myself it just surprises us because we had no idea that that's what was inside. And so just follow that hashtag and you'll see some pretty interesting things. Okay, so today we're going to go through this bike that is in my stand. But before we get going on the topic of today, please like and subscribe and hit that notification bell. Now, one of my friends, actually, it's the cameraman that from time to time shoots videos with me. He was having issues. There was an error as he was hitting the notification bell. I couldn't figure out what it was. So I apologize if that's happening, and if someone can tell me why there might be an error when someone tries to hit the notification bell, please put a comment below. Some of you are much more tech savvy than I am, and I need your help. Okay, so we're at about 650 subscribers, on our way to 1,000, and I really appreciate everyone who has subscribed. All right, let's get to the topic of today. We have a tri-bike here that is full internal cable routing for the shift cables and partial for the brakes, right? There's only so much you can do with the brakes, but it is. And customer came to me because during a ride, his cable snapped. His rear derailleur cable snapped. And so I said, okay, no problem. I'll get it fixed for you. And in the process of going through the job, I realized, you know what? This is a good opportunity to share my thoughts. Now, as if you've been following my channel for a little while, I'm a little bit old school about a lot of things. And internal cable routing, whether it be mechanical, like in this case, or electronic, and hydraulic disc brakes, things like that, I just think it's just a huge pain. It's a huge pain for the consumer, a larger pain as it gets transferred over to the mechanics for them to work on the bike. And I think how that pain is translated back to the consumer, who of course is not doing the job, but now they have to pay for a job that they could have done themselves, and or they have to pay a lot more than they expected for something that is simple. One example is headset bearings on these fully integrated cockpits now with the hydraulic lines actually running through the headset bearings. Just stupid, because now you have what would be maybe a $30 service on the headset bearings and maybe a $40 part. You now have to spend several hundred because you have to either rewire, re-hose, or brake bleed, or cut the hose. You have to do something to be able to pull everything apart and get the headset bearings out. But that's a topic for another day. Today, we're going to keep talking about this bike. And so if you know about internal cable routing and on aero type bicycles, whether they be road or triathlon time trial, they're trying to hide the cables so that you have a much more aerodynamic profile, and you reduce the aerodynamic drag. But here's the thing. Many of these bikes are tested in a wind tunnel without a rider on the bike, and they claim all these numbers about it's 10% faster than last year's model. But once you put the rider on the bike, and I know Cervelo, I was sponsored by Cervelo for many years, and I know Cervelo had a dummy that they would put on the bike and do some testing there. So, but once you put the rider on the bike, all this little cabling and stuff like that is such a minute portion of the overall aerodynamic drag that the rider, bike, clothing, equipment, helmet, shoes, just so many other things can contribute to how much aerodynamic drag the system is impacted by as it's going down the road. So I'm going to now grab the camera and get in a little closer so you can see what is going on with this bike and why I thought I would rant a little bit about this bike, but internal cable routing in general. Okay, so as I mentioned that this is a tri-bike. Now, obviously, because I have a little bit of personal pet peeve about these kinds of things, if you look at this bike, this gentleman has a full stack here on the headset area underneath his stem, and then the stem is in an upright position. Hopefully you can see that better right there. And the cables are coming in internal. This is new housing. I started this job last night and decided overnight, you know what, let's talk about this bike. So what initially the customer came in for was that he had a busted cable. And this is what the cable looks like. So right there, you could see that there is the busted cable, and you could see some corrosion on the line. And what's happening is that this cable comes through the frame, and there is no access underneath the bottom bracket. Usually there's a plate, or there's a cable guide, or there's something underneath the frame so you can get access to the frame or to the cable as you're trying to route it through. Well, that's somewhat bad news, but the good news is that there is a channel running through the entire frame. So, well, that's great for building the bike, but the downside is the water, and by the way, this is in San Diego, and it doesn't rain much here, but from time to time it does, and apparently this customer has been riding his bike in the rain, and so now the water is getting into the system, possibly through here. I don't know where else. And actually, the funny thing is, when I put this bike in the stand, there is a small weep hole underneath here, and it was leaking water as I put it into the stand. So that just tells me he's been riding in the rain. And as I mentioned, it doesn't rain much here, so you could skip a day and just not ride. Now, I left the front derailleur cable in place just so you can see the corrosion on this cable as well. And this is a situation where luckily he was not racing. Luckily he was just out on a training ride, but he broke that rear shift cable, and now his front cable also has corrosion and might have snapped, well, at any time. We would never know when it would snap. So this is something that we recommend, or I recommend here at my shop, that cables and housing should be replaced on a yearly basis. So if you're a DI2 person, you say, well, electronic shifting cables don't have to be replaced. They're, you know, put them in and that's it for the life of the bike. And that's true. I agree with that. But I'm old school, so there's a lot of things that I like of just plain simple mechanical shifting. And that's what I want to point to in just a second. So because this was internal and because the water was trapped, there was no way for the customer to know that his cables were corroding inside and that could snap at any time. Now, the bike here, this is one of my bikes, and I am a huge fan of steel bikes, and some of you might recognize these wheels from a previous video that I did of the Het Ardennes black wheels in a rim brake version that I really like. But what I want to call your attention to is this is internal cable routing. External. And here are my shift cables. I can see them just fine. I can see that if there's any corrosion. I can look at the bottom bracket and say, what's going on with my cables? Are they corroded? Are there any issues with my cables? Should I replace them anytime soon? And then I can make a judgment call. Again, external cable routing outside of the chainstay, heading back to the rear derailleur. So, you know, this is simple. By the way, it's also very simple to replace. I could be at any town, USA, with a busted cable, walk in to the bike shop, say, hey, I need a cable. Can you guys sell me a rear derailleur cable? And then I could just do the job while sitting outside on their stoop. So now, but wait, there's more, because not only does he have corroded cables, he also had a corroded barrel adjuster. So now we have a situation where this is a 10-speed rear derailleur. We are now in the 12-speed world with Shimano 12-speed, Campagnolo 12-speed, SRAM 12-speed. And by the way, Campagnolo now has a 13-speed for their gravel. And getting parts for 10-speed derailleurs or 10-speed anything is getting much more difficult. So we are going to have to find some derailleur from somewhere to be able to take off the barrel adjuster so we can fix this bike. Anyway, enough about all my ranting, but I do want to point out that if you have internal cable routing and you're still running a mechanical shift bike, please get them checked. Please get them replaced. Please do your scheduled maintenance at least once a year. If you ride a lot, or if you ride in very poor conditions, rain and snow and sleet and all that stuff, get them replaced much more frequently, because a cable can snap at any time. And especially if you're going out traveling to a big race for the year, maybe it's an Ironman, maybe it's a road race, maybe it's a week-long tour in the mountains of Colorado, get your bike serviced and made. And if you're on mechanical, possibly get the cables and housing replaced. Okay, that's all for today. But I wanted to point out that this is an important thing that needs to be done. It is metal. It's going to corrode. So that's all for today. I appreciate your time and your attention. Please like and subscribe, and we will see you up the road.